Hello, this is lesson 6 on Charge of the Light Brigade, which is quite different to the ones we've looked at before in terms of kind of the message behind it. We've seen a lot of the kind of pain that war brings, and this gives us a different kind of perspective on how we see war, and again links to that theme of patriotism that we've looked at before. So just for your starter, can you please write down from memory, that's quite important, a brief explanation of what each of the previous 4 poems are about. So we've done Remains, War Photographer, Bayonet Charge and Poppies. So just write down kind of what they're about from your memory and just try and recall that information. Like I say, it's vital that we understand each poem. Then after you've done that, attach a quotation from each poem that could show the effects of war and explain the significance. So, I mean, ideally, that will be able to come from memory. Hopefully from some of the tasks that you've done, there are some certain quotations that kind of stick out to you. But if you can't do that bit, use your notes from the previous lessons, and just that constant kind of revision of these poems will help us. So please pause here and do that task. Right, okay, so Charge of the Light Brigade. Firstly, just pause and read this poem, and then think about how this poem is different to the previous 4. So what I've just said about how it doesn't quite marry up with the same themes as the other ones that are to do with war. So think about that, maybe do some research on the poem, and then resume the video. Okay, so in terms of the context, so this was about a real battle during the Crimean War. So miscommunication led to a light cavalry unit. So this would be people on horses, very lightly armed. They'd probably have big swords or something like that. And they ended up charging towards a heavily armed Russian unit who had cannons. And basically they had no chance. And it was down to miscommunication. I think that's the big tragedy, and this is why this was such a famous moment, is that it shouldn't have happened, but the soldiers went anyway. So this poem is about patriotism and doing right by your country. So as you'll see, they didn't question the orders. They just kind of went in and did what was asked of them. So can probably pause here, do some Googling on the Charge of the Light Brigade, and then you'll have a better understanding of it. So do that, and it will help you with the rest of this lesson in terms of figuring out what's going on. The poem isn't too difficult to get your head around, but it does help to have that bit of knowledge. And then also think about this. What do you think the public attitudes would be if this happened today? So if a mistake kind of led to the sacrifice of hundreds of people, how do you think the public attitudes would, how do you think the public would respond to that? And how does this contrast with the tone of this poem? I think it's really important to note the tone of this poem as we're going through it. And just one other bit. So at this point, we're in the 1800s. Newspapers are becoming more prominent, and the public know what's happening. So obviously nowadays it's really easy. As soon as something happens, you'll get a notification on your phone. It'll be straight on the news websites and things like that. So people know what's going on with the world, especially in terms of conflict. So back then, up until the Crimean War, people were often kind of left in the dark. They didn't really know what was going on. So this is the first time that the public can kind of see and comment on kind of what's going on. So as you can imagine, there would probably be quite a lot of outrage at something like this happening. So if you haven't already, just pause it here and work through the tests on this slide. Okay, so the poem is separated into 6 different stanzas. We've got varying lengths. And if we just look at the language to start with, so half a league, half a league, half a league onward is how it opens. And a league is a unit of distance. We don't use it anymore. I think it's approximately about 3 miles, or it was supposed to be however far you could walk in about an hour was a league. So half a league, half a league, half a league onward. Just as I'm saying that, you can kind of hear the rhythm. If you kind of tap it out like half a league, half a league, half a league onward, could be kind of replicating the sounds of the horses. So, I mean, what we need to know is that Tennyson's writing this poem to kind of show these people, show the glory of these people and how great they were. And he makes this poem kind of action-packed, and it sounds like he tries to make this disaster sound like a really good and noble thing. And so by kind of replicating that sound like that, we're almost kind of getting into, we're immersing ourselves into this story, even though it actually happened. It's almost making it sound like an epic kind of tale. All in the valley of death rode the 600. So this picture here is the valley of death. So obviously nowhere to hide. They would literally just be charging straight at the enemy. And I think it was named the Valley of Death because of how kind of many people died there. Forward the light brigade, charge for the guns, he said. So we imagine this is kind of someone in charge. We've got the speech marks there showing that this is the order that's being given. And I think the exclamation marks kind of replicate the passion. This was a really passionate, dedicated attack in the name of Britain, perhaps. And so the use of punctuation there kind of replicates that. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Into stanza 2, forward the light brigade. Again, we've got that kind of passionate charge feel going on. The use of the speech again almost kind of helps us hear what's going on. It immerses ourselves into what's happening. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. So again, the idea is that yes, someone had blundered, but it didn't matter. The soldiers would kind of go on anyway. They weren't to question it. So it says, theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. And so it's praising them. It's saying they're doing whatever their country asks of them. All right. These are soldiers. It's almost like they don't make their own decisions. They just kind of follow these instructions, and they do it in the name of the country. So we should all be kind of praising these people. Into the valley of death rode the 600. So you'll notice that repetition there. Again, which we'll talk about in a second. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them. So we've got this repetition here which emphasizes just how impossible it was, that they had no chance, that they were surrounded. Volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well. Okay, so it's talking about the brave soldiers really doing their duty, and saying that they did it well, and that we should be proud of them, and that they've made us proud of them. Into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell rode the 600. So again, it's the third time it's ended on this line. We're almost going on this journey with them. We rode the 600, and it kind of shows, it almost makes them sound like they were a threat, the enemy. And that idea moves on into the next stanza. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabering the gunners there. And it's really glorifying their charge and their attack and what they did. So against all the odds, they put up a good fight. So the fact that they're sabering the gunners shows that even though they weren't well equipped, that they were impressive in the way that they kind of went in fearless and actually took down quite a lot of these, quite a lot of the enemy, even though they shouldn't have a chance. Charging an army while all the world wondered, plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the saber stroke. All right, so it's saying, almost playing down the tragedy that the enemy was wounded, that actually the 600 did a good job and it wasn't done in vain, because they actually troubled the enemy. Whether or not that's true, again, we don't know. Maybe we need to do a bit more research on that, but the tone of it is really kind of saying that they've done a good job and it wasn't a pointless thing for them to do. Shattered and sundered, then they rode back, but not the 600. And so we've got a change in the structure there. We notice that the last line of this stanza doesn't end like the last one did, or the last three did. And so maybe this is a first acknowledgement of sadness. So even though Tennyson's trying to kind of show how great these people are, we are almost showing respect here, but not the 600. And it's kind of a time for mourning. We've had all this action going on in the last few stanzas, this or the sabering and everything that's happening, and now kind of that pace kind of drops and we reflect that not the 600, that they actually didn't get out there, or most of them didn't get out of there alive. So again, we've got this phrase again, cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them. So I suppose as they're returning, they're still kind of up against it. They're still in the face of danger. Volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. And so we've got that alliteration there with the horse and hero. And like I said, we always talk about what alliteration could emphasize. Why does it draw our attention to that particular phrase? And so we could say it's emphasizing the heroics of these soldiers. Back from the mouth of hell. So again, using this metaphor that they've been to hell and some of them have come back, really shows just what an incredible achievement. Mind the spelling error there, but what a sense of incredible achievement that was. All that was left of them, left of the 600. So we see the last stanza's much shorter, and it's kind of sums up the point of the poem, I think, to kind of really put these into history. When can their glory fade? So that rhetorical question kind of suggests that their bravery is going to be immortalized, that no one's ever going to forget what a sacrifice these people have made. Is almost saying that it would be impossible for people to forget because of the magnitude of what they've just done. Oh, the wild charge they made, all the world wondered. Honor the charge they made, honor the light brigade, noble 600. So those imperatives, it's almost speaking to the audience, to the readers there of the time, telling them, honor the charge they made. Yeah, don't be sad. They've done something heroic. This is something that should be celebrated, and we shouldn't necessarily be too sad about it. We should respect them, but actually the heroics of what they've done is a real positive. And obviously it ends on there saying Noble 600, that positive note there. And so we can kind of see why it's a lot different to the other poems. It's almost a celebration rather than drawing on the negative effects of war. And again, if you look at the structure here, we can see it's put into these 6 stanzas, and they've all got, I suppose, titles, which kind of draws to the fact that this is telling it like almost like it's an epic tale. It's almost like you've got chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 with all this action going on. And so again, it just kind of comes to showing us just what they did and how impressive it was. Okay, so compare how poets present the effects of war in the Charge of the Light Brigade and one other poem. So that is your comparison question, your section B 30 marker. So again, on top of this lesson, you should have about 45 minutes left, which is great because that's how much you should be spending on a response like this. Use the documents from lesson 3 to help you craft your answer. So that table I sent out and the success criteria, do use that, keep using that until you don't need it anymore, and that'll kind of help you put your ideas out there. I thought I'd do it, the next comparison one, on the Charge of the Light Brigade, because you've got an easy way in with this one to compare, because of the different tones to the rest of them. It's quite easy to kind of compare how one of them is really patriotic, whereas another one might be the opposite. So so go for that. Finish the video now. Enjoy writing the question, writing your responses, and just think about kind of your interpretation. So yes, you can use some of the things that I've come up with or that you've researched, but again, just think yourself. And it's really, really important that you're coming up with your own ideas. Remember, I'm not going through every single kind of word or phrase in these videos. I'm just giving you some tips to get you going. So that is your writing task for today. Get it emailed over as soon as possible, and then I can start sending out the feedback. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day.